Good day, everyone. My name is John Marquez Mbingnay, and together with Miss Josephine Adele Aspie, we are going to discuss and narrate to you the story called The Adventures of Aeneas. But before that, let me give the floor to Miss Josephine Adele Aspie so she can give you a little glance about the characters that you are going to encounter along this journey.
Aeneas, the mythical founder of Rome, the sole Trojan warrior to escape the Greeks, and the son of Venus. Andromache was Hector's wife, Eetion's child, and Podes' sister. She was educated and nurtured in the Sicilian Thebe, the city her father ruled. Helenus, a kind and astute seer, as the child of King Priam and Queen Hecuba of Troy. He was also a prince of Troy. Juno or Hera. Hera, the goddess's ruler in Greek mythology, was compared to her. She was a Saturnian daughter, the sister of Jupiter, his wife, and the parent of Mars, Vulcan, Bellona, and Juventas. Aeolus, the first Aeolus who bears the name of the Aeolian race's founder, was a child of Helen. Dido was the fabled founder and initial queen of the Greek city-state of Carthage, which was situated in present-day Tunisia. Neptune, the Roman deity of the oceans and waters. Neptune also governed winds and storms. He was also referred to as Neptunus Equester and was revered as a god of horses. Venus was closely linked to love and beauty, same as her Greek rival Aphrodite, but the Roman goddess was also associated with other things. Breakslide, as the head of the deities and the guardian of ancient Rome, Jupiter was known as the king among all gods. In Rome, his full name is Jupiter Optimus Maximus, which says it all. Cumae, the priestess in charge of the classical Greek observatory at technologies used to change a Greek settlement close to Naples, Italy, was known as the Cumaean Sibyl. Aeneas, Aphrodite found him when he was tending to his ship on summit Ida and, taken by his beauty, gave birth to him. He was a minor member of the Troy royal line. Actes, a faithful friend or companion. Charon, the waterways Acheron and Styx, which divide the worlds of the dead and the living, are crossed by him with the souls from those who have received funeral rites. Latinus, he is frequently linked to the Trojan War heroes Odysseus and Aeneas, despite the fact that his depiction in the Aeneid and Greek mythology cannot be reconciled. He may still be identified as a single character, despite the stark differences between the two images. Lavinia, a Latinus and Amata's child. Turnus, Turnus is the sibling of the goddess Juturna and the child of Donus and indeed the nymph Venilia. Mezentius, Lausus' father, Mezentius, was an Etruscan king. Camilla. King Metabus and Camilla's daughter is Camilla of Volsci. Father Tiber. Roman mythology includes a character named Tiberinus. He was the he was the Tiber River's god. As the mastermind of the Tiber, he was added to the list of 3,000 rivers. Evander. The god Hermes and the deity Carmenates had a son named Evander. He established the Lupercalia and brought about some of benefits of civilization such as writing. Nisus and Euryalus. Nisus and Euryalus were a couple of lovers and friends in Greek and Roman folklore who served under Aeneas in Virgil's epic poem The Aeneid. Pallas. The giant god of combat, the warcraft was named Pallas. He was the mother of the Zeus allies in the Titan War. And that's all.
Thank you so much for that very wonderful introduction of the characters, Miss Aspie. Um, yeah, consider that a teaser, and I know you are already excited to the actual story, but let me tease you more because before we move on to the actual narration, let me give you first a little bit of an insight about the origin of this piece. So, The Adventures of Aeneas is actually a poem, also known as the Aeneid, written by Publius Virgilius Maro, or more famously known as Virgil, a famous Roman poet and philosopher. A huge part of it was inspired after the Iliad and the Odyssey, an epic poem written by a Greek poet and philosopher, Homer. Some of obvious similarities in the Aeneid from Homer's work is like, for example, in the Odyssey, um, the first part of that story is that the main character Odysseus is trying to return to his home, but the difference is, um, um, Aeneas, instead of trying to return to his home, he is actually trying to find a new one or build a new one. So after more than 10 years of work, Virgil is finally almost finished to the piece. But he still wanted to take 3 more years to publish it for him to be able to have some time to make revisions, perfect the work. And to be able to do it, he traveled to Greece. But along the way, he caught a severe fever. So he came back to Italy. And there's some historical gossip that before his death, he wished to burn the unfinished the Aeneid, because he's not yet satisfied with the results of it. Um, and he knows that he has no time left yet. Um, but King Augustus, however, basically King Augustus is his boss, his financier to create this piece, did not grant Virgil's death wish, and he still published the epic poem because he believes that it will support Roman superiority, and turns out that he's right because this piece has become so influential in more than 2 millennia. Now, let's move on to the actual story. But before that, can I hear some drum roll, please? So the story begins with Aeneas, son of Anchises and Venus, escaping away from Troy, which is already captured by the Greeks. With the help of his divine mother, he was able to run away with his son and his father and some other Trojans safely. But unfortunately, his wife didn't make it. After a long wandering with no permanent place they can call their own, Aeneas and his people tried multiple times to build their new city, but they were always unlucky and consistently encounters tragedies and bad omens. For a while, they stayed on an island called Crete, and then suddenly, the king of all gods, Jupiter, conveyed a prophecy to Aeneas, an assurance that the place that they were looking for is somewhere in Hesperia, a place that we now know as Italy. Because of the assurance of the prophecy, Aeneas and his men are all excited once again to prepare it for a new adventure. Everyone thought that it would be an easy and smooth sailing journey. They already have the assurance of the gods after all, but their enthusiasm would just fade away because even though their victory is certain, it didn't mean that it would be an easy process. Along the journey, they face a lot of struggles, and the first huge challenge that they encounter is some group of harpies that force them to put up a fight. They managed to escape the battle, but it, it had caused some minor casualties. Their escape to the Harpies leads them to an unexpected city and reunites them with an unexpected people, Andromache and Helenus, who is now already a couple. When the Troy has been captured, Andromache was given to Neoptolemus, son of Achilles. But later on, he abandons her and gets married to a younger woman, Hermione. But soon after, he dies, and once again, Andromache takes over the leadership of the city and gets married to Helenus, a Trojan prophet. Aeneas and the small group of Trojans are of course welcomed by Andromache and Helenus. They had a wonderful conversation, and Helenus, being a wise man, gave Aeneas an advice to where the safest route is to take, so that they can avoid the Greek soldiers and some sea monsters like Charybdis and Scylla. He also told him to ask an advice and guidance to the Sibyl of Cumae when they get to the island where she at. Aeneas followed the instruction of Helenus, but along the way, in the southern part of Sicily, they land on an island that has been occupied by some cyclopes. Helenus probably missed this updated information. If Aeneas and the Trojans weren't so lucky, they could have just easily get captured and died there on the spot. But coincidentally, there was a man who named Polyphemus, who is also stuck on the island, was able to warn them before the group of Cyclops appeared. Unfortunately, they didn't able to save Polyphemus, but they are able to save themselves. After the escape of the adventurers from the gigantic monsters, the challenge isn't over, because they will face something greater. Juno, queen of all gods, noticed that the Trojans is making their way to her favorite city, the Carthage. Juno holds a huge grudge among the Trojans because of Paris' action in the pre-Trojan War era, and she knows that there is a prophecy that a Trojan blood warrior will someday destroy the Carthage and will be able to make a revolution and create a powerful country. She didn't want this to happen, so she did what she could to stop Aeneas' fate. She contacted the king of the wind, Ilos, to create a very strong storm that any mortal couldn't survive. But luckily, the god of the sea, Neptune, noticed it, and he didn't want her sister Juno to intervene with the mortals, so to equalize the situation, he protects Aeneas and his men, calms the sea, and makes sure that they'll be able to land to the Carthage safely. Unfortunately, Aeneas' father, Anchises, was one of the casualties of the storm that they faced. Juno was furious at first, but on the other hand, she realizes that she could make the situation turns into her advantage. If Aeneas will fall in love with beautiful Dido, a widowed leader of Carthage, maybe he can be so distracted that he will forget his original mission. So in the end, she just let Aeneas enter her favorite city. On the other side of the story, there's Venus, mother of Aeneas, is trying to protest the king of the gods, Jupiter, about the struggles of her son and about the actions of Juno that caused it. She asked if the prophecy would really happen because so far it doesn't seem like it would. Jupiter just laughs and assures her that she has nothing to worry about. Venus was able to calm herself, but just to make sure her son's safety, she thinks something similar on Juno's plan. She called her other son, Cupid, to make Dido fall in love to Aeneas, but ordered to just use his arrow to Dido so Aeneas wouldn't be crazy in love to her. Aeneas and this man manages to arrive to the Queen of Carthage's place, and they were welcomed by Dido. She was kind of struck by the handsomeness of this guy, Aeneas. She treats them so generously, and after a short time, she treats Aeneas not just any other normal visitor, but she treats him like a king. Some time has passed and Juno's plan seemed to be working. Aeneas is so distracted, but Jupiter noticed what's going on. So he sent Mercury to remind Aeneas about his real mission, about his great fate. Aeneas is famously known as Spiceman, so he doesn't have any hesitation and follows the god's will. Dido doesn't want him to leave, but Aeneas' determination is inevitable, so she didn't able to stop him. Aeneas is finally continuing their journey and sees a great and weirdly beautiful fire along the way. But he is not aware that this fire is from Dido, who burned herself because of Aeneas' departure. And Juno, once again, was more enraged. But she is not done yet. After some days of sailing, the Trojan adventurers finally able to reach the island where the Sibyl of Cumoe can be found. To follow Helena's advice, they went to the Sibyl, as she was known for being great at telling the future and will be a great guide if Aeneas wanted to fulfill his fate. The Sibyl told the hero that to be able to succeed on his mission, he first need to go to the lower world and talk to his father, to be able to acquire some wisdom that he is still lacking. But before entering the lower world, he must first find a very rare item called the Golden Bow. Accompanied by one of his most loyal men, Achaetus, Aeneas began on his journey on finding the said item. If it's just them, it would be impossible to find it. But Venus decided to intervene and send two doves that will lead them to the said Golden Bow. After successfully acquiring the Golden Bow, Aeneas and Sibyl continues the lower world with the Sibyl as a guide. Aeneas faced almost no danger along the way, aside from psychological challenge on witnessing some brutal things happens in that world. The journey was safe and steady, but along the way, our main hero saw someone who is so weirdly familiar. It's Dido. Aeneas wept. He tried to talk to Dido, asked what happened, asked if he is the reason why she's dead. But Dido's soul doesn't recognize Aeneas at all. Because of this, Aeneas' heart has become more broken, but he has a mission to accomplish. They continue and face the boat sailor, Charon. And because of the golden bow, Chiron accepts them as his passenger. And Aeneas finally meets his father and his other ancestors. And in the end, Aeneas was able to acquire the wisdom that he needs to fulfill his fate. That he come back to the living realm, and now the Trojan hero is more than ready and determined to face his destiny and face whatever circumstances it may be. On the other side, Juno has her own plans too.
Given that Aeneas is a warrior, it makes sense that he must engage in one more battle before realizing his potential and creating a home for his people. Due to the enraged Juno, who hasn't let go of her animosity towards the Trojans, Aeneas must battle two armies to demonstrate his bravery and deserving of recognition as a hero. Part 4, Chapters 1 and 2's account of Trojan War emphasizes how vengeful the gods may be, but Juno's continued animosity toward Aeneas and his ships of refuge shows her as being overly petty. Even a deity cannot stop fate, as evidenced by Aeneas' eventually victory over the Latin and Rutulian forces. In a way, the Latins and Rutulians have right to be wary of a stranger entering their midst with plans to find a new kingdom. Yet, both Latinus and Turnus have serious flaws in their leadership abilities. For instance, Latinus is aware that Aeneas is destined to marry his daughter, yet he has the guts to support Aeneas when his subjects turn against him. Turnus acts in his own self-interest. It is crucial for Aeneas to build partnerships with other regional leaders who recognize the benefits his leadership can have for their region. If he wants to be taken seriously as a leader in this new realm, Aeneas is portrayed as an ally of the oppressed thanks to his partnership with the destitute king Evander. Aeneas is shown as a defender of justice by his collaboration with Etruscans who are eager to apprehend their absconding king, Mezentius. Aeneas gains a tactical edge and a moral right to the territory he conquers, thanks to the help of the deity of such river Tiber and the Etruscans, the finest army in the area. Aeneas' status as the greatest hero of Rome is further commented by the metaphors used to characterize him in his final conflict with Turnus, including comparisons toward Apennine mountains and the sea deity Aegon, who creates storms in the Aegean Sea. This combat is so lopsided because Aeneas is such an irresistible force, according to Edith Hamilton, that it lacks tension. However, Virgil's original intent requires such a fierce conflict because it decisively puts an end to Aeneas' troubles and demonstrates his maturation as a character, transcending his human frailties with fate on his side.